The sun converts around 100,000 kilograms of matter into energy every minute and releases a lot of this energy out into the solar system as waves of electromagnetic radiation. The sunlight that reaches the Earth consists of ultraviolet radiation, visible light, and infrared radiation. And these are just a small part of the continuous spectrum of electromagnetic radiation. Organisms that photosynthesize capture visible light. It's called visible light because it is part of the spectrum that we can visibly see. Visible light exists in different wavelengths, and these wavelengths are measured in nanometers, which are very small measurements of 1/1000th of a meter in wavelength. The shorter the wavelength, the more energy it contains. And this means that violet light, which has a wavelength of approximately 400 nanometers, contains more energy than red light, which has a wavelength of approximately 700 meters, simply because it has a longer wavelength. So these colours of the different wavelengths of visible light should be familiar to you, because they're actually the same colours that you would see in a rainbow. We can't actually detect these different colours from direct sunlight. In fact, we see sunlight as white light. It's not until this white light is refracted that it is broken up into the various colours that you would see in a rainbow. And this is done through water droplets in the atmosphere that refract light. You can do a very similar thing with a crystal. If you hold it up to light, you can actually refract the light into these different wavelengths. Plant cells contain several pigment molecules that capture light energy. And the most abundant of these is chlorophyll A, which is a major pigment found in plants, algae, and cyanobacteria, and it is blue or green in color. Photosynthetic organisms also have several types of accessory pigments, which also capture light energy, and these include chlorophyll B, which is a yellow-green colored pigment in plants and green algae, and carotenoids, which is a red, orange, or yellow pigment found in plants, algae, bacteria, and archaea. Photosynthetic pigments have distinct colors because they absorb some wavelengths of visible light and reflect others. Chlorophyll A and B absorb red and blue wavelengths. They appear green because they reflect green light, and that's illustrated by this image up here. You can see that the leaf appears green to our eyes, and that's because it reflects green light and absorbs the majority of the rest of the visible spectrum. Therefore, the green light that's traveling to our eyes makes that leaf appear green. Each pigment reflects and absorbs different wavelengths of light, which is represented by these different relative absorption levels that you can see in this graph. So for example, chlorophyll A has a peak absorption here of around about 430 nanometers, whereas chlorophyll B has a peak absorption of around about 450 nanometers. The carotenoids have two distinct peaks over here in between 400 and 500 nanometers. What you will also notice is that none of these pigments is particularly good at absorbing light in the middle here, between about 500 and 620 nanometers in wavelength. However, over here you'll notice that chlorophyll B has another small peak in absorption at around about 650 nanometers, and chlorophyll A will absorb light again at around about 680 nanometers. Carotenoids, on the other hand, reflect longer wavelengths of light, meaning they appear red, orange, or yellow. And you can notice that in the graph by the absence of any relative absorption of light by carotenoids beyond about 520 nanometers. Carrots, tomatoes, and lobster shells get their distinct colours from carotenoid pigments. In the case of lobsters, they don't photosynthesize, they don't actually have the pigment carotenoid. However, they gain that colour from eating food that has carotenoid pigment in it. Autotrophs can only use light that is absorbed for photosynthesis. So the purpose of having a number of different photosynthetic pigments is so that plants can extend the range of wavelengths that a cell can absorb for use in photosynthesis.